All right, we are about to walk through one of the most raw and honest prayers you will ever encounter. It's a 3,000-year-old cry from a man in absolute agony. But listen, this isn't just some ancient poetry. It's like a movie, a journey from the deepest, darkest despair to this tiny sliver of hope. And we're going to experience it, verse by verse. You know that feeling? A pain that's not just in your body, but it's deep down in your soul? A weight that is so heavy you can't even find the words for it? Well, the author of this prayer, David, he's been there. And what he does is give us this shockingly vivid look inside that whole experience. So this journey starts at what really feels like rock bottom. David is completely convinced that the source of all his suffering isn't just random bad luck. No, he feels it's coming directly from God, like a form of discipline. He feels like he's literally being crushed. Okay, verse 1. The prayer just explodes out of the gate with this desperate plea. I want you to picture a kid who's done something wrong, and they see their parents' face just filled with fury. What do? They instinctively throw their hands up and shout, "Stop! Not in your anger, please!" That's the feeling here. It's pure, unfiltered panic. Now, in verse 2, the feeling gets way more specific. Imagine being pinned to the ground by some massive, invisible hand. You can't move. And while you're held down, you feel these sharp, stabbing pains hitting you from above, one after another, like arrows finding their mark. That's the image he paints.
Verse 3. So now the pain moves inward. It's systemic. He feels like his body is literally falling apart from the inside out. Think of a building where the foundation is cracked. That's how he describes his bones. They're aching not just with sickness, but with the heavy, heavy weight of his own sin.
And verse 4, this is where the source of it all becomes crystal clear. Picture him standing in deep, dark water. But now that water, which represents all his past mistakes, has risen up and it's completely over his head. He's not just drowning, he's being crushed by the immense pressure of it all. So from this feeling of being spiritually crushed, the prayer somehow descends even further into this really graphic description of physical decay. This is what all that spiritual weight actually feels like in the body. Verse 5. Wow, this is just brutally honest. He's looking at his own wounds, and these could be physical sores, they could be emotional scars, and he sees them as infected and disgusting. And he takes full ownership, admitting they're a direct result of his own foolish choices. Then in verse 6, his emotional state is literally affecting his physical posture. Just imagine a person so burdened that they can't even stand up straight. He walks through his entire day permanently bent over, as if he's carrying an invisible backpack that's just filled with rocks. Verse 7. Here he describes this deep, internal burning pain. The original language points to his very core, his deep insides. So this isn't some surface ache. It's a feverish, inflammatory sickness that feels like a fire is just raging deep inside his body. And in verse 8, he's just completely out of energy. He feels as fragile and useless as a piece of pottery that's been smashed into a million pieces. And every single beat of his agitated heart forces a pained groan out of him. It is the sound of total, utter exhaustion. But then, right in the middle of all this ruin, we get this moment of raw connection. In verse 9, it's like he's saying, look, I have no energy left to even form the words, but you see it all. You see every unspoken hope, every desperate wish. You hear every single exhausted sigh. Nothing is hidden from you. Verse 10, you can feel his life force just fading. His heart is racing like a sprinter's, but it's producing zero power. He feels his strength just draining away, and visually, the world itself is going dim. The light, the color, the focus, it's all just disappearing from his sight. And then, verse 11, here comes the isolation. Just imagine being sick, and the people you need the most, your friends, your family, are all standing on the other side of a great canyon. They can see you, but they won't, or maybe they can't, cross over to help. It's a feeling that's painfully familiar even today. In an age where we're supposed to be more connected than ever, deep suffering can still make us feel like we're on an island, just watching the world go on without us. So think about where he's at. He's sick, he's weak, and now he's isolated. It really seems like the absolute bottom. But then, believe it or not, the darkness deepens. His enemies start to move in for the kill, and his response? It's completely unexpected. Verse 12. Okay, so now he's not just sick, he's actually being hunted. He feels like he's walking through a dark forest, and all around him, his enemies are setting hidden traps.
He can hear their whispers just beyond the trees, constantly plotting his downfall.
So what does he do? Verses 13 and 14 show us his reaction, and it's to shut down completely. This is a conscious choice. He sees the traps, he hears the whispers, but he decides to act like a deaf and mute man. It's like putting on noise-canceling headphones and refusing to speak, choosing not to engage or defend himself at all. He just withdraws into total silence. And it's right there, in that profound silence, after all the darkness, all the pain, that he makes a choice. One single thought just cuts through all the noise. And this is the pivot. This is the crucial turning point of the entire prayer. Verses 15 and 16, he turns his focus. He stops looking at his sickness. He stops looking at his isolation. He stops looking at his enemies. Instead, he just looks up. And he makes this direct appeal to God, placing his hope in the only one he believes can actually hear him, pleading that his enemies won't get the satisfaction of watching him fall. Now, this newfound hope doesn't magically solve everything. Not at all. Instead, it fuels one last urgent and incredibly powerful cry for help. This is the ascent, the climb out of the darkness. Verses 17 and 18 are a moment of just brutal self-awareness. He admits he's standing on the very edge of a cliff, that he's about to fall. And in that moment, he fully confesses his role in this whole crisis, saying, "I will declare my wrongdoing." He is owning his part of the pain completely. And right here, in verses 19 and 20, he lays out the raw injustice of it all. I mean, the contrast is so stark. On one side, you've got him, weak, sorrowful, trying to do good. And on the other side, his enemies. They are strong, they're full of life, hating him for no reason, and actively repaying his good with evil. It just brilliantly highlights the moral conflict he's trapped in. And the prayer ends with verses 21 and 22, a final rapid-fire shout for help. It's no longer a slow groan, it's a burst of urgent commands. Do not forsake me, be not far, make haste, help me. It's the cry of someone going under the waves for the last time, just screaming for a lifeline. This whole journey, from the depths of pain to a final, desperate plea, it really forces a powerful question on us. When you feel crushed, when you feel like you're in ruins, when you're surrounded and feel completely silenced, where do you turn? What is your final plea?